I just retook courses, re-educate yourself. That's the whole thing and I found out that it changed a bunch of the stuff. It changed in terms of subject too. They're still legal. It's still good, but there's been a new process that's come in. And so, I went back and I paid for the courses, and I have no trouble with that because I've done really well with them. And so that's a lot of what I would say is.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Brian Penn started investing in real estate in 1994 in various areas, including probate, no money down, short sales, wholesaling, buy and hold, single-family homes. Brian, it sounds like you have done it all. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Sam. This is great. I really appreciate being on your show, and I look forward to speaking with you.
Absolutely, and I with you, sir. There are 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show in 90 seconds or less. Can you tell me, where did you start? Where are you now, and how did you get there?
Well, I started right after I was finishing up a postdoc at the Colorado School of Mines in Igneous Petrology, which is a very arcane field. And one day I got a card from, I just got a card that said, hey, make money in probate. And I just jumped on board with that. I took the last $5,000 I had from my graduate time and postdoc time. And I jumped on a plane and flew down to Phoenix and went to a 3-day seminar on probate. It was really kind of funny. And what I think is one of the more interesting things, there was a 3-day seminar, 50 people were in the seminar. I got a list of all the people that were in the seminar. And a year later, I called them all. I had bought a couple of houses and flipped a couple of things by that point. I called the 49 other participants. Not one of them had done anything. It blew me away. And so I don't know if they could just, $5,000 in 1995 was pretty much a big chunk of change. And so, it was like, wow, so I was because when I got back, I hit the ground running. And I don't know if you know probate, but calling up dead people's relatives, not as much fun as you think it ought to be. I only got up to like the 1,000 calls I made during that first year, 1,000 or 1,500 calls. I maybe got 1 or 2 people that said, "Oh my God, you're a heartless, bad, heartless person." Right. And most of the people were trying to sell everything before the body was cold. So, that's what you meet up most of the time. But it's very intimidating to do that. So somewhat I couldn't feel too bad for people, but I was hoping some of them would try at least. So, okay, where I am now is I live in a cabin in the Rocky Mountains. Okay. I've taken everything and I have a real nice view of Pikes Peak on the west side. And so it's, most of my stuff's in Colorado Springs and stuff. And so it's a joy to be here. You watch the antelope run across the big meadows and stuff here. And it's just really, really cool. But I keep focusing and I keep working towards just expanding my investments to a great extent. So like I said before, is I look for opportunities and I follow up with them and I follow through. I have one rule when I get involved in something is I work to find out how much, I pay a certain amount and I see how much effort it takes to get that money back. And then I look at the cost benefit ratio of having done that. And then I say, well, do I pursue this? And it's been a good rule of thumb. Whenever I jump into something, I say, okay, it cost me this much. Now I'm going to spend my amount of time. I'm going to focus on this so that I can make my initial investment back and then go, okay, how much effort and time did that take? Is this worth the time and effort? And generally it is, but you have to, that's my first threshold. And then I go beyond that. Generally, I did that with Brent Bowers, who you've spoken to before. I took us, I met him one time and we're in Colorado Springs where it was just mad city for the last 10 years in terms of trying to buy houses and do the stuff that I did. Cause I went from the probate, I went down to Texas to do another postdoc. And I was sitting there and I said, hey, I saw an infomercial with Carlton Sheets back then and no money down. And it was like insane. So I took the course and I picked up a number of properties and did a bunch of stuff while I was in El Paso, Texas. And then I came back to Colorado Springs in around 2000 and just kept going forward with that. I was buying houses and flipping stuff on the side. I had a full-time job, and that's what I try to tell people is Brent is, I think, in many ways, is pretty unusual from my point of view. I'm not as daring as he was. I don't dive full blast, and I have a PhD. I make good money, and I made good money doing what I was doing. But I didn't trust that would last forever. I was looking at Social Security. I was looking at all this stuff that I was coming to an end, and that's just the part of it. And I said, well, what's the best thing I can do? Well, I can buy something that's going to appreciate. And so whether I get a retirement, a pension, or Social Security and stuff like that, I don't know how long any of that's going to last. And funny thing with the pension is when I eventually left my one company I worked for, a large airframe manufacturer who will remain nameless. They said, oh, look, you're going to get $1,100 a month and for the rest of your life or something like that. And I said, how much money is it? And they said, well, it's about a couple $100,000. And I said, well, $1,100 a month. If you look at just inflation back then in the 2010s, so it's about 2%. And if it goes up, after 30 years, that $1,100 is worth about $500, And so I said, why don't I took it, rolled it into a property that I had a lease purchase on. And right now the property is generating over $2,000 a month for me. And it's a great way to stay inflation proof. There's so much that's like that. And so I went ahead and during the 2010s, money was cheap. And everybody was showing up to Colorado Springs. It was unbelievable. It's like, oh, the housing market is so great and everything. And the thing that I found interesting is people showed up and they had no idea. Everybody was into real estate. Real estate's where you make money and stuff like that. And so I just constantly met people at these real estate meetups that had no clue about real estate. I had just heard about real estate. So at that point, I came up with the notion of why don't I write like a primer or whatever you want to call it on real estate. And instead of just these big, deep real estate meetings, I'll have these seminars, like monthly seminars on just beginning investing for real estate. And so then COVID hit. And that was the end of that. So I went ahead and wrote a book on beginning real estate investing for beginners. And I wrote this book, and it was going to be the textbook I had for the course. And so with the course down, there's not going to be any meetings for a couple of years. I went ahead and did a Udemy course. And so you can go and see that. So I put both of them together. But it's really for people that are just really can barely spell real estate. And so, because that's what I found is I said, well, are you going to be doing, I'd meet people and go, are you going to do wholesaling? Are you going to do, driving for dollars? Are you going to be doing land? Are you want single family? Do you want multifamily and stuff? And they really had no idea. And I said, do you even know what those concepts are? And a lot of them said, I don't have a clue. I said, so I wrote this book for them. I did this course. And that's what the big thing that I was telling people is, okay, let's just take you from ground zero just up so you can go to these meetings, and then you can talk to people about the different aspects. Do you have a lot of money? Do you have no money? Most people have no money. And so we were going, okay, you can start with driving for dollars. You can get into wholesaling. You can do the fix and flips and things like that. And so that's what drove me to write the book and make up the course. And I just want to get the word out, because now we are on the cusp right now of the 2008-2012 thing that happened. The market sank tremendously. Now people are going to be underwater in their properties. They're going to want to move, and you have to be able to learn how to work with them and provide a solution to them so that they can get out of their situation, which is like most real estate investors, you want to help people. And so you're helping them out of a jam. And so you're able to take over their property, able to work with their problem and help them solve their problem, make a little money and secure your future at the same time. So kind of that's what I'm getting ready to do. And I think we're going to see that with interest rates doubling and tripling. And then people are sitting there and they can't sell their house. So we're back to the 2008, because during that time, I basically got a lot of properties during 2008, 2012 in Colorado Springs, and they have appreciated so incredibly. I'm just like blown away. but I couldn't have predicted that. That was dumb luck. Okay. So that's kind of where I am now. That's what brought me in this.
That's awesome, Brian. That's a lot of moving pieces there. What would you say has been the strategy, if any, as you shift from each of these different investing methods?
Well, it's kind of like you kind of evaluate where you're at, and you can look at the market and see what the market's doing in the direction it's going in. And I try to keep a close watch on the real estate market in Colorado, and just I have a lot of connections with different brokers and things like that. And I'm like, where are we going? And so a friend of mine said, we were talking just she's a real good real estate agent. She said we were talking about what's happening in the current market. She goes, well, people are going to lag what the reality is. Mm-hmm. People will generally, they don't like, oh, my house was worth $1 billion and I'm going to get more than I'm asking for and everything like that. And they're kind of still in that mode.
Right.
But you can see 6 months or 8 months down the road, they're going to realize that that's not good. And so that's what I try to do is let me look at the market. Let me look at what's interesting. It's like the land stuff that Brent is into and I'm into, the vacant land, is that opened up. During all this time, there were people that were, all the housing, everybody's nuts over housing, coming in fix and flip, and everybody's just out trying to outcompete everybody for something. And where are people not going to be? It's like going to Disneyland. Go to Disneyland, go to the rides. When there's no one there, you get to ride. That's you go where other people are not. It's like invest. The best time to make money is when the market is down, and that's with houses. It's like there were no houses for maybe 5 or 10 years there, where there was just such huge competition, and now the market's going to sink down, and that's when you go in and you make your money. You go in and you just invest. You go in smart. You don't go in and go, oh, I'm going to take over this house. You make sure that all the numbers work. You make sure that you can cover the cash. Your cash, you have positive cash flow on everything you do, or walk away from the deal. That's the way I do that. And you're trying to help people, but people, the wizard's first rule is people are stupid. I always love that. And, you're trying to help people out of a situation a jam they've got themselves into, and make a little money at the same time. And that's basically what the approach is. So, and you try stuff like I was doing the probate stuff in Colorado. It was great. I mean, to a great extent, I moved to Texas. It ain't so great in Texas. Everything is a closed record state. So the toolkit I brought in there didn't apply to Texas. And so you kind of go, okay, well, it's like having an LLC in Colorado is great, but you can't have an LLC in Texas. You've got to have an LLP. So just getting yourself educated and working forward from that. If you see something interesting, and getting yourself education is worth what you pay for. It really is just getting yourself educated. And that's kind of what I've done is like, okay, I need to know about this. Okay, I'm going to have someone teach me it, and it's worth the price. I went back just now. I did a bunch of subject twos during 2008 to 2012. And I went back and I talked to, a couple of people. I took some courses from Bill Bronchek, who ran the Colorado Association for Real Estate Investors. I just retook courses, re-educate yourself. That's the whole thing and I found out that it changed a bunch of the stuff. It changed in terms of subject two. They're still legal. It's still good, but there's been a new process that's come in. And so, I went back and I paid for the courses, and I have no trouble with that because I've done really well with them. And so that's a lot of what I would say is my problem now is the notion of you have to have tax write-offs, and you're at a stage where if you pay everything off, you've got all of these taxes. I have a friend who owns his family owns a bunch of property down in southern Colorado, in a place called Trinidad, Colorado, and his family's been there for since the last century to a great extent. They came out and they were miners about 100 years ago, and then they bought most of the town, and now they own most of the town. And he goes, he pays just incredible taxes. And so what you have to do is I weigh stuff out in terms of, okay, do I pay this house down, or am I working? Do I pay this mortgage off, or do I just work on getting something else and then use the tax write-offs and things of that nature? And so and what the funny part is you sometimes find abruptly that you have to replace a new roof for $20,000 or $50,000, and that's a good write-off.
It is. It's funny how your strategy changes. I think one of the temptations as you get more seasoned in this business is to think that, all right, I'm not going to pay for any more courses, or I don't want to keep investing in yourself in that way. Yeah. How have you been able to vet? I mean, let's just say the vacant land space, right? All right, we want to start investing in vacant land. There's like 500 people you could potentially go learn from, ranging from a $2,000 to a $100,000 course on how to invest in vacant land. How do you make your decision?
Well, I did with this because I knew Brent. That was the big thing. Most of it, I knew Brent and I trusted him, and I'd gone to a number of meetings where he'd made presentations. Usually, I try to go for a course that has content. Like I said, I worked with Bill Bronchek at Legal Wiz up in Denver, and his courses are reasonable costs. I paid $5,000 for that first course in probate, which probably was, I overpaid, but I made all the money back. And using that threshold, which is that I'm going to work my butt off until I make the money back. And so it's been really successful. So pricing a course is deciding on a price of a course is look at the content, look at the people involved, look at the history of if you've worked with somebody. And I've worked with Brent, I've worked with Bill, and recently I branched out to another lawyer who was doing subject to also. And I just said, well, I met him in person. Basically what it is, I meet people in person and I can get a feeling if I can work with them and what they're saying. And if you can vibe with somebody to a great extent, that's huge. I mean, teaching is a pretty tough profession, and being a student is pretty tough too. So you have to use your money wisely. But I found that there usually somebody has something to offer, and of course you're going to learn a lot. And so it's how much you take that knowledge and apply it is really where the value of the course comes in.
Got it. I absolutely love that. I've enjoyed hearing your story thus far. I mean, you've done so many different things. You've pivoted as you've watched the market pivot, and as you put it, what did you say? You said something to the effect of watch where the market's going or where you think it's going. Yeah. Have you ever, in your, I guess now we're going on almost 30 years of investing, do you feel like you've made a wrong bet or a wrong guess as to where the market or where things may be heading, in your investing?
Yeah, my biggest mess up is not connecting with partners sooner. I acquired a property, and through things that were going on with me departing from my original job, I was thinking, I'll get this house, and then I'll refinance it and just go like that. Well, when I went to refinance it, I was no longer working with that big stable income. So lenders were not as happy to see me.
Right.
Weird, isn't it? If you don't have a big W-2 coming in, and I had a pretty good W-2. I had spent, basically 10 years working, and I had to go get my own funding for my job. So I was bringing in, $750,000 to $1 million a year, funding what I was doing for this large company. And this large company was so big that was just in the noise of the company.
Sure.
They really didn't care.
Right.
There was no love. And I knew they were going to do this to me, but it just so happened. And so I ended up losing quite what I consider was quite a bit of money, about $40,000 that I invested in this property, because I didn't know, maybe I should share this, that I've got this lease option with this I think it was a lease option with this on this big asset. And I didn't go to the real estate meeting. I didn't go and say, hey, can anybody help me out? I could have flipped the contract. I could have had somebody come in with hard money lender to help me out and stuff. And that was probably the biggest mistake I've made. And so it was an unpleasant, I mean, it didn't hurt me tremendously because I had enough other assets, but it was just talk to other people. If you get in a jam in real estate or anything you're doing, talk to other people that are in the business, because they'll make suggestions. And they had said one time, I think it was, I don't remember which guy said, but the biggest courses, the most expensive courses you go to are the ones which you don't take a class on, which was partnering. It's like, yeah, I learned a lot from that one, except it was exceptionally expensive for me because I'm fairly conservative. I had a friend who was basically he was getting houses and then flipping them and acting as a mortgage broker. So he had like 60 houses or something like that. Well, the DA got a hold of this and said, "You're acting like a mortgage broker, and we're going to investigate you." And so he lost all 60 houses.
Wow.
And went down to zero. And I think the thing is be certain of what you're doing, make sure you're on the right side of the law, if you will, and be following stuff. This has happened a couple times in this area in Colorado Springs, where I know 2 or 3 people that did that. And the DAs went after them. And so don't act like a mortgage broker without a license to be a mortgage broker. It was insane. I've watched them. One of them was actually hilarious. He was on That's Impossible. He was on some show a long time ago, and he used to be able to jump over, like a Ferrari would drive straight at him 100 miles an hour, and he would jump over it.
Right.
And it was incredible. And That's Incredible. That's what it was. And it's just, I met him years later and I said, "Can you jump that high anymore?"
Right. Absolutely. Brian, this has been a blast having you come on the show today. I hate to say it. We are right at the end here of our time. I've learned so much from you. Everything from the effective way to just pivot and really find opportunity inside of the market. Learned a ton from you on your style of investing, your commitment to education. So many things here that we can digest, and certainly appreciate your time. If our listeners want to get in touch with you and learn more about you, what is the best way to do that?
At my website, I have a website called Real Estate Success, the number 4 and the letter U.com. So it's realestatesuccessforyou.com. And I have a book, and I have a connection to the Udemy, and I have a blog that talks about the real estate market in Colorado Springs pretty much.
Awesome. Brian, thank you again for coming on today. I certainly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You too now. Bye.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.